G'day, it's Dave here again. Now, what we're going to do is look at the hierarchy of the courts, and I could be wrong in this, so it's actually very difficult to determine exactly how it goes in Queensland. I don't know why it is, but it is. But let's start with, if there's a death, then the coroner is involved first up to determine the factual situation surrounding the death. If there's no death and it's just a person who has breached the act and an inspector has brought that breach to their notice, if they want to dispute it, they go to the industrial magistrate. Now, if they don't like what the industrial magistrates hold, then they go to the Industrial Court of Queensland, which has more than one person sitting on it, more than one judge. Sorry if they're all men, but I could only find one man that looked like a judge. The Industrial Court of Queensland is an appellate tribunal. In other words, it's used generally as an appeal from the industrial magistrate. So the industrial magistrate is known as a trial judge, looks at the fact and law, and then the appellate tribunal doesn't generally look at the factual scenario. They tend to trust the factual tribunal of the industrial magistrate. Doesn't mean they can't, but they generally don't, because they don't have the demeanour of witnesses, they call it. If you don't like the industrial magistrate, then you've got a number of magistrates in the court, number of judges I should say, in the Queensland Court of Appeal, and that once again is, as the letters come in, an appellate tribunal. And you'll see that it's been handed up from the industrial court or the industrial magistrate through to the Queensland Court of Appeal. And there's always in Australia the final Court of Appeal, these eminent people who are quite amazing, I've got to say, which is 7 judges of the High Court. Now in any one of those they can be they can sit 1 judge, 3 judges, 5 judges or 7 judges. In the High Court, for instance, they always have an odd number because they are odd. That's probably the reason they have an odd number. Okay, now, sorry, bad humour. This is known as the system of stare decisis, which I'll spell for you in a minute. But essentially what it is it's a way of saying to people that you know, if you don't like the judgment you've got, you can always appeal. Now it's costly, it takes a lot of time. The average time might be between 2 and 5 years, or even more than 5 years to get through this process. If you went to the High Court, you could be looking at 7 years or maybe more. Stare decisis works with 1 judge of olden days, which could be the industrial magistrate, or could be an earlier, because the legislation is reasonably recent. In fact, it's not likely to be very old, but certainly 1 judge then looks at what another judge has said, and the case of stare decisis, or the principle of stare decisis, there it is there, is not to disturb. Don't disturb. Stare decisis is part of a Latin maxim which is much longer, and I'm not going to tell you because you're not lawyers and I'm not allowed to tell you. It's like masonry, you're not supposed to give away the secrets, and you've got to do a law degree to learn the secrets of what the full thing is, or look it up in Wikipedia, as I did, because they didn't tell me because they thought I was too strange. In the stare decisis, what it means is don't disturb the past. In other words, 1 judge sticks with or understands the past. Now, it's kind of the way it's always been with common law, but in the last 20-30 years that concept of stare decisis has been very much eroded, and in fact they're quite happy to knock over an old judgment if it doesn't look like it's producing judgments. My experience of the courts tells me that what they tend to do is, if there's a judgment in front of them, they look at it and they say, this is the fair result. What cases have I got that I can enforce them with? Now that's just my observation. It isn't necessarily what they will say, and it may not be what they actually do, but nevertheless that's, I think, the way it actually runs. They look for the justice in the case, then they fit the previous case law to that. If they have to overrule previous case law in order to reach a just decision, they do. And I think that's very good. There's nothing wrong with that system at all. So there you are. That's the court hierarchy in a nutshell. But, and here you probably screw up all your notes that you've just made now and throw them away. You don't really need to know that for any part of the course whatsoever. And good.